11Alive News starts now.
10 o'clock on this Thursday, January 29th. Great to be with you here on 11Alive Plus. Appreciate you making us a part of your day. We got another packed hour with you here in the streaming center. We got Reams Landreth over here looking for some breaking news nationwide and here at home. We'll be bringing it to you throughout the morning, but we got Chesley off to my left who's closely watching a system off the coast and what that could mean for you as you wake up on Saturday morning.
Yeah, unless things drastically change, snowfall will be the headline on Saturday, and really the cold air. I've been saying more of the story is going to be that cold air that's going to come on Saturday. I want to focus this hit on the snow if we can, right?
Sure.
So today, clouds will be cold, 44 degrees. Tomorrow, same thing, mixed sunny clouds, 44. So we have an 11-hour weather impact alert for the weekend, Saturday through Monday, right? We're going to impact those days or alert those days because of the cold air. Cold air, when I'm saying cold air, I'm saying temperatures will only be in the 20s on Saturday. Starting off in the teens on Sunday morning, we'll only make it up to the low 30s. And so it's going to be below freezing, let's say, from Friday night all the way through Monday mid-morning. It's a long time to be below freezing. So make sure you wrap up your pipes, folks, for this weekend. And there could be some snow thrown in the mix of that as well. And so you talk about slickness on the roads. We have a winter storm watch to our east right now. Okay, so we're looking at Athens, eastward over toward Augusta. That'll start Friday night, will last through Sunday morning. Snow accumulations right now, this is early on, 2 inches in those areas. Slick roads, certainly possible. That does not mean we won't see anything here in the metro area. I do think we will, as a matter of fact. But I think it will be on the light side. So you're looking at an area of low pressure that will slide up the eastern seaboard. The closer it is to us, meaning the more westerly track that it takes, that's the higher totals for us. Could be even west of the city of Atlanta. But if it stays on an easterly track, meaning more out to sea, that's less of an impact for us, mainly our counties that are adjacent to South Carolina, right there on the border, and then up to the north. So North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, they'll get hit with the most, 6 to 8 inches of snowfall. I think either track, that's what they're looking at there. All right, now, I want to show you some models. Model information is what we look at when we're talking about what we see. And what we look for is consistency in these models. So if you look over toward the Athens area, you notice they're under the blue shade on both models, right? Even a little pink getting into the Athens area on both models. So that tells us anywhere from 1 to 3 inches possible in that particular area. You get over toward Atlanta, you look at the American model, shows nothing, or just about nothing. And then you look at the European, which actually does better with winter weather. It shows where we could get up to an inch. Up to an inch. Now, let me show you our in-house models. I'm going to show you 3 different models. So here's our in-house model. That shows a little more in Atlanta, right? And so that would say our westerly trend, or maybe on more of a westerly trend, right? So that model is showing in Atlanta maybe up to 2, right? Up to 2. Now, keep in mind that when it starts, at least the timing right now shows it coming in Saturday morning, ending by Saturday afternoon for us, snowing longer over toward the east. So another reason why it shows higher totals over toward Athens. But this is a situation where it's a weekend, folks.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday morning. A lot of folks want to get their kids up, get them out, play in that snow for a little while and get back in. Now, they're not going to be out there long because, as I said, it's going to be freezing, right? Temperature's only in the 20s. The wind's going to be whipping around a little bit there, so it's not going to be that enjoyable. And here's the other thing. How much moisture will be available? If there's not a lot of moisture available, you're talking about powder.
Okay.
Easily blown around. You know what I mean? Not like sticking like you want it to. That's blown around. If moisture is in it, that makes it heavier, wet snow. That's the fun stuff. That's where you make the snowballs.
Yep.
You roll up the snowman, that kind of thing. So if it's powder, people are going to be you're going to be upset. Yeah, it snowed, but I couldn't do anything in it.
So it's almost a wait-and-see storm at this point.
Absolutely. The area of low pressure has not even formed yet that we're talking about. And so once that forms, which will be tomorrow, we'll get a better grip on its path and how much we stand to get and the intensity of it.
I think about these beach towns in South Carolina who just are not used to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So there is going to be more like, oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Right? They'll be excited because it's a weekend, a lot of people are off. You don't have to get on the roads, that kind of thing, so you get a chance to play in some snow. But the long-term effects for them You know, you're talking about maybe being out by Monday and Tuesday,
Right.
right? Because it's going to be piling up there more.
If Google is correct here,
Mm-hmm.
Hilton Head's record snow amount was 6.5 inches back in the 70s.
Wow. That's hard to believe.
You can double check me on that. That's a quick Google.
Think about, okay, there was a storm back in 93
The blizzard of 93.
that came up the East Coast. I think here they got something like 10, 12. I wasn't here then, but I think like 10, 12 inches here.
Yeah.
And South Carolina only got like, wow.
I was up in Chattanooga, just a little kid at the time. My
Yeah.
parents had just given birth 2 weeks prior
Wow.
with a baby, and we lost power in the house.
Oh.
Everybody has a blizzard of 93 story. It's so much fun to
Yeah, I was in
reminisce.
Delaware. That was 17 inches.
Wow.
17 inches. I was in college, man.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fun.
I bet it was.
So much fun, man. Cars were buried. Oh, it was great. It was great.
All right.
Yeah.
Chesley, thanks, man.
You got it.
Whew, he's going to be fine-tuning that forecast in the days ahead, and we are all looking forward to seeing what happens come Saturday morning. We got to talk about some other big news of the day, and still a lot of questions this morning. After the FBI served a warrant at a Fulton County elections facility, removing thousands of ballots from the 2020 election. We're told all part of a federal investigation. Ariana Manise reporting live from her outside where this happened yesterday. And Ariana, I guess we first found out about this around noon yesterday, but judging by the video you're showing this morning, it looks like they were out there well into the night.
As FBI agents went in and out of here at the Fulton County Elections Hub for hours that stretched into the evening. Now, we also know that the deputy director of the FBI, they also got here in Atlanta. They were also here on the scene, as well as the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and that raid went on into the evening hours, Dan. And the DOJ, the thing is, they've been suing Fulton County already for these records, but a judge has yet to rule on this case. Court documents show the Justice Department is examining possible violations of federal election laws, including how records were stored and maintained here at the Elections Hub. Now, we did hear from state and county election leaders who were also here on the scene as the records were seized, who say they expect federal investigators to review the records as part of that process.
I think the FBI is going to do their job, and I think it's about time that that people have answers. And so, we're just here to see what's happening.
Fulton County Superior Court had scheduled a February 9th hearing where we were doing a transfer of all of those records to the parties involved, but we thought it was going to be an orderly transfer. So we were already planning to make sure. We had already said how many boxes, we had already said how much there was, and that's what we were planning to do.
Yeah, so it appears the DOJ went ahead of that court ruling. As you heard from that election official, there was a court date set for February 9th. As far as that search warrant, the FBI hasn't released any further details, only saying that the investigation is ongoing at this point. And those records, they will be headed to the FBI central office that's located in Virginia. As soon as we get more developments out of this story, Dan will be sure to bring you the latest. Reporting live here in Fulton County, I'm Ariana Manise for 11Alive. Back to you.
Ariana, thanks for that report. And I want to get to some reaction we're getting from people on both sides of the aisle. And I will start with some Democrats here. Senator John Ossoff called President Trump a sore loser on a crusade in response to what we saw. The Democratic Party of Georgia issued this statement saying that every Georgian should be alarmed that Donald Trump is wielding federal law enforcement to push his baseless, dangerous lies about winning the 2020 election. And then some Republican responses that we are seeing on X include this response from Representative Buddy Carter, now running for U.S. Senate, Senator Ossoff's seat, in fact, saying Georgians are about to get some long overdue answers and will learn just how right President Trump was in 2020. Representative Mike Collins on X said, "Go get him, Cash," in reference to FBI Director Kash Patel. And then you had Burt Jones also on X saying Fulton County elections couldn't run a bake sale. And he goes on to say, unfortunately, our Secretary of State hasn't fixed the corruption and our Attorney General hasn't prosecuted it, saying today is an important step toward accountability. We also heard from President Trump just a week ago speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, almost hinting at what was to come yesterday with the raid. Let's listen to some of his comments.
Have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It's a rigged election. You can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it.
Donald Trump there speaking last week in Davos, Switzerland at the World Economic Forum, mentioning the 2020 election. It's something he's talked about for years now. So did this raid come out of anywhere, or were there precursors to this? Jonathan Raymond on our digital team is joining me now. Jonathan, you have a great article up right now talking about the timeline of this. So, I mean, if you've been paying attention, I guess it really didn't come out of nowhere.
No, it's ramped up in the last several months. But it actually goes back quite a ways. Where it starts is that in November of 2024, the State Election Board issued 2 subpoenas to Fulton County to obtain all these records that were yesterday seized by the FBI. So that sort of sets things in motion. That same month, the county filed a motion to quash the subpoena or block it. And so that was a state court case that was not highly publicized, but was in the background. Then you get to last summer. Last summer, the State Election Board, still having not obtained these materials, passed a resolution asking the Attorney General of the United States to assist them, basically. I think the exact language they used was to effect compliance with voting transparency. Mm-hmm. Fast forward another few months. In October, the State Election Board issued a new subpoena. And that's really when this starts ramping up. That same month, the DOJ sent a letter to the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections saying, the State Election Board in your state has asked for these materials. We want to obtain them on behalf of the SEB. So, and then that's where it keeps going on from there. There were more letters passed between the two. The county claimed that the records were under seal and could not be provided absent a court order. And then in December, the DOJ sues Fulton County for these materials. And then that progressed up to the point of, I guess, yesterday when this raid happens. And so now I guess the question would be if that federal lawsuit now faces issues of mootness, or I don't know what happens with it at this point, because the records that the DOJ wants, the FBI now has. Meanwhile, the state case that goes back to 2024 was somewhat resolved in late December. Judge Robert McBurney in Fulton County, who people may recognize that name because he has been part of all the varying Trump proceedings, going back to Fonnie Willis and all that, he says that the subpoena will not be quashed. He sides with the State Election Board. He says, and he uses very kind of colorful language at times in his orders, but going into, essentially saying, I don't know why this matter that's 5 years old is before me, but the State Election Board has this authority. It is within their purview to want these records. And he says, you guys need to comply basically with the subpoena. Then the sticking point at that point was, well, Fulton County saying it's going to cost us $400,000 to produce these records. So then they had a hearing scheduled actually just last week for March that would have resolved the matter of how much it would cost Fulton County to give over these records. Again, I don't know if that runs into matter of mootness or because the records are now in someone's possession, the someone being the FBI.
And when you talk about records, we're talking about physical ballots,
yes,
ballot images produced by scanning ballots, voter rolls, and tabulator tapes. That's a ton of information that voters maybe once thought would be kept private. And I'm just wondering if this is about preservation of evidence now, or if somebody at the FBI is going to be tasked with the laborious task of counting all the voter rolls from 2020.
That is a really central question, because where this has evolved from the original lawsuits and claims that came out basically in November and December of 2020 is that there's sort of two main contentions, if you will. The first is fairly straightforward, and these are the things that have been coming up before the State Election Board, like the admission by Fulton County that 130 or so, 140 tabulator tapes were not signed. That made headlines back in December. And the Georgia Republican Party statement actually put it pretty succinctly yesterday, where they referred to ballot handling and chain of custody procedures. So there is a growing record with complaints that have come before the state election board, with activists who have kept pushing this since 2020, that indicates that Fulton County didn't do a lot of what it was supposed to do in terms of record keeping, administrative stuff. Whether that goes to something deeper, the activists would say yes. The state, Brad Raffensperger had a statement in December saying that it was a clerical error. That's a debate that we cannot resolve here right now.
Have we heard from him, by the way, after
Since
yesterday?
I do not know.
I haven't seen.
So that's one tack of it. The
Yeah.
other tack of it is that now these ballots have been seized by the FBI. They're the essential fundamental record of, if you think you're going to find something, that's where it would be. This is not, the tapes were not signed, or ballot images weren't preserved, which might say that Fulton County failed in some respect and could be sanctioned in some kind of way. This is the fundamental record of the 2020 election. The FBI now has the ballots. Again, people who have been contesting this for a long time would say what they're going to go in there and find is the doctored ballots, the fake ballots. I don't know what the FBI thinks it's going to find. That is, I guess, what we will discover over the course of months that now proceed from here.
I think so. Jonathan Raymond, thank you so much. If you want to read his article right now, it's on 11alive.com. FBI raid at Fulton County Elections Office. What led up to this? Jonathan, appreciate your time today.
Happy to be here.
And we have plenty more coming your way here on 11 Alive Plus. Coming up next, we're talking about a film out called Rogue Elephants. What does this mean when it comes to the greater picture of mentorship and mentoring young men around the Atlanta area? We're going to have that in-depth conversation in just a few minutes. Welcome back. You're watching 11 Alive Plus. I want to talk about an Atlanta-based documentary that's out right now, shining light on the power of mentorship, especially for young black boys. And let's check out the website. It's for Rogue Elephants. And it explores what happens when positive male guidance is missing and how lives can change when a community steps in. Joining us this morning is Durike Geuka, director of Rogue Elephants and former president of Emerging 100 of Atlanta. We'll get to that connection in a minute. But Durike, great to see you this morning. Thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks so much, Dan. Really a pleasure to be on. Thanks to everyone at 11 Alive for having us to talk about our important work.
Well, you're welcome. Let's talk about that work. The film Rogue Elephants. How did you choose that name, and what do you want folks to know about it?
Yeah, well, I think something that's really interesting is that I'm a former teacher. And when I transitioned from teaching into the law, I really wanted to find a way to give back. And there's an awesome program here in Atlanta called the Emerging 100 of Atlanta that mentors students at APS Best Academy. I was on the phone talking about the mentoring that we were doing with my mom, actually, and she said, "Wow, it really reminds me of this special that I just saw on the BBC about elephants." And she tells this story about what happens to a group of young teenage elephants when they didn't have a male role model, the destructive behavior they engaged in, and how a group of conservationists introduced male elephants into kind of their family pack, and all of that bad behavior just went away, and these elephants kind of began reforming their behavior. And I thought, wow, that's really similar to the effect that we're seeking to have through our mentoring programs in the Emerging 100 of Atlanta. And we talked with a few of our members, my then current executive board, and also Daryl Humphrey and Rob Owens, who are the executive producer and co-producer. And we came up with the title for our film because we thought it was analogous to the work we were doing here in Atlanta.
You know, when you talk about the absence of male figures, what are some of the real world consequences of that gap? Not when it comes to elephants, but when it comes to humans.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one thing is for sure. I mean, if you think about a household that has two incomes, children just have a tremendous advantage, right? Because they got two people pouring into the home. That's extra resources. That may be the difference between whether you can pay for an SAT or ACT prep course. That may be the difference between whether you can take that, senior trip to Washington, D.C. or Disney World. It may be, the buffer that happens, a parent suffers a job loss. But then there's also just the diversity of perspective, right? You got two lived experiences going into a child's upbringing, making sure that they are able to really see the world through a mature lens. And in a lot of places where there's a high concentration of poverty, you also have a high concentration of single parent led households. So through mentoring, through engagement, through, really trying to bridge and understanding with people from different backgrounds, I think we are coming in and, donating that, positive male perspective in communities where it oftentimes, is kind of under-sourced. And we've seen some amazing outcomes from our students. We've seen them go to Ivy League institutions. We've seen them go and get into entertainment and media. We've seen them get into politics. We've seen them work with a lot of the staple corporations here in Atlanta, and we're really proud of that.
Derique, you have an interesting and unique journey, I would say. You taught middle school kids. You worked in the federal court system, if I'm not mistaken, practicing corporate law now. So you've seen people at a young age. And then you've seen the broader system. How have those experiences shaped your views on mentoring young men so to help them avoid the pitfalls that you've seen?
Absolutely. I mean, I think two things. One, we're all more alike than we are different. And it's hard to hate up close. So when you've been in a classroom with students, and seeing just how precious they are, how wonderful they are, and as a teacher, you have all these high hopes and aspirations that they're going to become, everything they want to be. You go to law school, you exit law school, and you work in the federal court system, and you see so many people facing just deleterious situations. Some of it's, their own doing, but you're like, man, I wish I had been able to help this person before they got to this point in their life and gets derailed. And now that we have an opportunity as mentors to kind of meet at that cross section, there's about 200 or so members in our organization who are really committed to making sure that no children end up in these bad outcome situations if we have anything to do about it. And we're really trying to promote them to, attend college, to pick up a trade, to do something that they find fulfilling and productive and that's helpful to other people in society as well as themselves. And that's really what it's all about.
For folks who aren't part of a formal mentorship program, they may not be a part of the Emerging 100. What role do we all play as a greater community when it comes to mentoring some of the young men in our neighborhoods?
Absolutely. Well, I think one thing about Atlanta that's beautiful is I think it's a city that's too busy to hate, right? So just showing a general amount of kindness when you're out on the street interacting with people is incredibly important. Another thing I think you can do. You hear about philanthropy and you think a donation has to be, some absurd amount of money that, we may not individually possess. But even small donations go a long way for making sure that someone who's food insecure has something to eat, or someone who is homeless may get a care package. So you can make a donation. There's also the Big Brothers Big Sisters is an organization that in the Emerging 100 we look up to a lot. Shout out to Kwame, who's the CEO and president of the organization. He does a lot of good work. Anyone can go become a mentor there and make a really big impact in the life of a child. You can support organizations like the Emerging 100 of Atlanta, the Urban League, other groups. They're doing really important work in the community.
Derike, how can we watch the documentary Rogue Elephants, and what do you hope people take away?
Yeah, so we'll be doing a premiere at Fox Theater on Sunday, February 1st. It'll be invite only for the first premiere, and then we'll be doing a broader release with more details to come. So you can visit the website, sign up to learn more about the documentary Rogue Elephants and the Emerging 100 of Atlanta. And what we want people to take from it is really the importance of community and the importance of not necessarily second chances, but understanding that everyone's journey is unique. People are suffering in ways that we just don't see when we walk around. We bump into folks in the grocery store, at the movie theater. So extend a little kindness to folks, and hopefully people extend that same kindness to you. And I think we'll all have a little bit better go at this one shot we got living if we treat each other better.
Hate up close. I love what you said, Derike, and I appreciate your time this morning. Please let me know when this is released to a broader audience, and we'd love to have you back on for an update, or at least pass it along to folks and where they could find it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully you can join us on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Derike. Derike Gayuko, director of Rogue Elephants, former president of Emerging 100 of Atlanta. Great conversation there. We're back in just a couple more minutes following more news headlines for the next 30 minutes here out of the 11Alive Streaming Center. We'll see you in a few. One of the longest cold air outbreaks in decades, extending few more days. It's getting even colder with record temps as far south as Florida. As we take a live look at Athens, you don't want to miss Chesley's forecast a few minutes away because we're talking about snow on the ground there come this weekend. In the meantime, let's talk about the cold across the country. Here's Reed Binion.
Our lows will get into the negatives, as low as -3 or 4.
Officials in Washington, D.C. warning the brutal winter weather isn't over.
Current forecast is for 10 days. This is going to be one of the top 5 longest running cold streaks on record.
This as Washington is still dealing with the crippling effects of the Arctic blast.
Very cold weather that has turned that snow and ice into solid, almost concrete-like conditions.
D.C. isn't alone, and the severe winter weather doesn't appear to be over. With millions of people in the U.S. already shivering amid the extended cold air outbreak, one of the longest in decades for some, it's likely to get more brutal in the coming days. The eastern half of the country is set to get hit with a new push of bitter air, making temperatures plunge even further Friday through Monday. Upwards of 200 daily cold temperature records could be broken as far south as Florida. Weekend temperatures could drop more than 30 degrees below normal in some areas, especially in the east, and in the south, which is still coping with massive power outages from the last dose of icy weather.
We're trying our best to get all of our three-phase major lines back on. The weather conditions, trees are still falling, limbs are falling.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
All right, and that cold hitting us hard here in Metro Atlanta, too. Jesse McNeil's been telling us for days to prepare for the weekend, you know, not just the potential for snow, but also just how cold it's going to be.
Whew, I think that's more of the story, really. I mean, temperatures down into the 20s. And you're talking about, let's just say, Friday night, all the way through Monday morning, temperatures will probably not rise above freezing, and if it does, it'll be like an hour or two. Yeah, so you got this extended period with temperatures below freezing. So wrap up your plants. Your plants that you can't bring inside. Pipes, of course, people, pets, the P's, the 4 P's.
That's right.
In full effect. And we're on snow watch, all right? So we're watching for the potential for snow in our forecast area. We do have an 11Alive weather impact alert. It's going to kick in on Saturday for us. We're looking at that cold weather coming in. You're talking about temperatures only in the 20s. We'll start in the 20s. We'll stay there, maybe rising 3 degrees that day. And then you got to throw snow on top of that because mainly over toward our east, we could see some measurable snowfall. So right now, the Weather Service is really focused on Athens eastward because there it's a little bit more likely at this particular point that they'll see about 2 inches, maybe even more in some spots. Slippery roads, no doubt, in that particular area. Atlanta's not in it. Rome's not in it, but that doesn't mean you won't see any flakes flying around. There could be some light snow flurries around. Or if the storm happens to push further to the west, that means you can get on some of those totals, maybe up to an inch, right? If it stays on this westerly path, meaning it'll be more closer to the coast, then we're looking at those higher totals, maybe up to about an inch for the metro area and westward. If it stays out to sea, a little bit further on that easterly path, that means less around the metro area, more over toward our easternmost counties that border with South Carolina. So certainly South and North Carolina and Tennessee and Virginia will get anywhere from maybe 3 to maybe 6 or 8 inches over there, which is going to be devastating for them. Of course, it'll be fun during the weekend, but once they get over the snow, then having to remove all that so people can get around will be a little bit difficult. Our models show that. So if you look at the Athens area, not necessarily Atlanta right now, look at the Athens area, it's consistently in the blue with some of that purple and pink touching that area. So that's more consistent, which is why the Weather Service went with a watch for that particular area. For us, it's more, will we get some? Will we get a little bit? Will we get none? We're still on that scenario. All right, so that's what we're watching for. My best bet I would say less than a half an inch at this particular point. It will probably form on the grassy surfaces or at least pile up on the grassy surfaces there a little bit, but that would be it. The wind that day would help to blow it away. It's only going to be here for us in the morning toward the afternoon, and then it's out of here. But over toward the east, it would be snowing for a longer period, which is why those totals were a little bit higher. Here's our in-house model, and it shows a little bit more of Atlanta toward the 1 to 1.5, maybe up to 2 inch side, right? Something I think we can handle, but Athens, as you see, would be on the higher amounts, like closer to the 3 to 4.
Wow.
So which model do you go with? What are you looking at? What we look for is consistency, and right now the consistency is over toward Athens eastward of seeing the higher totals. Atlanta, not so much. You're talking about a dusting to an inch is what we're seeing right now. So that's what we're going to go with right there. But again, the cold is really what we're looking at. I want to show you the 7-day outlook real quick here. Notice how we go from 46 degrees for a high on Friday down to 28 for a high on Saturday. Saturday's going to be a miserable day because the winds will be whipping around as well. That snow may be a little fun to go out there and play in, especially if it has some moisture content to it. If it doesn't have a lot of moisture, then it's powder. So you have to hedge your bet. But the weekend will be cold. 15 degree start on Sunday morning. Woo. That's going to be tough for
And you
folks
got
that
early service Sunday.
Early service, man. Yeah. 7 o'clock service.
Bring your hat.
Yeah. And Reams has a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not a marathon.
Are you still running
it's
that?
It's not a marathon.
The hot chocolate
It's 9 miles.
9 miles. Okay. That's marathon a month for
Not
me.
more than I'm doing that.
We're currently still doing it.
Okay.
Will that change by Saturday? Probably. But check back in tomorrow.
I don't.
It's
I don't
going to be
envy
windy
you.
Sunday morning, too?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You don't have to run, Reams. Just sleep in like the rest of us. All right, Chesley, thanks.
Thanks so much.
All right. Keeping a close eye on that in the coming days. Hey, let's get to some other news headlines we're following for you today. And this just coming into our newsroom. Indian authorities now investigating a Nipah virus outbreak after confirming 2 cases. Several Asian countries now tightening health screenings and airport surveillance for travelers arriving from India. Now, this virus, it spreads through fruit bats, pigs, and human-to-human contact. And right now, no vaccine available for the virus. Estimated fatality rate between 40 and 75%. So far more deadly than the coronavirus. And it's starting to have a lot of people talking, at least in that corner of the world. Let's get more from NBC's Janice McKay-Frey.
This is a highly contagious virus between humans, and it's often deadly. The 2 cases of Nipah virus were detected in India in the state of West Bengal, but there are concerns the outbreak could spread. The virus has a fatality rate of 40 to 75%, according to the World Health Organization, deadlier than the COVID virus, and there's no vaccine for Nipah. So authorities in India are taking no chances. At the same time, several airports across Asia, in Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and Hong Kong, are taking steps to screen passengers for any symptoms. Nipah is a zoonotic virus that's transmitted from animals, usually fruit bats, and doesn't spread easily to humans. It can also come from contaminated food. And when it does hit, it initially feels like the flu, then worsens. Experts say pneumonia and other respiratory symptoms can develop. But the most serious complication is encephalitis, or inflammation of the brain. The WHO says the fatality rate has a lot to do with the country's capacity to test, trace, and treat those infected. In India, authorities have quarantined nearly 200 people who may have come into contact with the 2 infected. It's the first time in nearly 20 years that India has had cases, but they believe the outbreak is now contained. Still, it's a situation that U.S. health officials are watching very closely, the CDC saying they're ready to assist if needed. Janice Mackey-Frayer, NBC News, Beijing.
Let's get a check of the stock market this morning, and traders not liking what they're seeing when it comes to some big tech earnings. The Dow down 250 points, but Reams, S&P, and NASDAQ down even more.
Yeah, it looks like Microsoft sunk 11% in open hours trading this morning. That's what's causing a huge dive there. It's spoiling the Magnificent Seven's earning enthusiasm, according to CNBC. At the same time, Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all the other fun stuff, they're up 8%. Tesla shares also down a little bit after a drop in revenue for the first time ever. Lots going on up there in New York. We'll keep an eye on this. Hey, we're also keeping an eye on this news conference happening in South Florida about some U.S. relations with Cuba. You want to listen to this for a minute?
Let's do it.
Your time is up. The Cuban people have waited long enough. I want to thank our Congressman Carlos Jimenez for organizing this event, and I want to thank our Congressman Carlos Jimenez for organizing this event, and Congresswoman Maria Avila Salazar for all of her support. And Congresswoman Maria Avila Salazar, what you're hearing today is from our federal level to our local level is the what you're.
We're going to work on getting a better audio source on that, so I'll try to get that figured up here in just a moment.
Sounds good, Reams. Thanks. And we're going to take a quick commercial break as we work to get the audio sorted out. Always great to be with you here on 11Alive Plus, with you from the Streaming Center for the next 20 minutes. We'll see you after just a few minutes.
Demuestra que la presión que le están poniendo.
Hey, we have some breaking news. It appears Jeff Duncan is about to give some comments to the media outside of the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center where that FBI raid occurred yesterday. Just for some background, Duncan was a Republican at the time, Lieutenant Governor of Georgia during the 2020 election. He has now switched parties. He is now a Democrat and now running for higher office. In fact, he's running for governor. So let's listen into a little bit of Jeff Duncan.
We go back through the rigmarole.
Rolling. Alrighty, just for the record, I'm going to have you say and spell your first and your last name. You don't have to spell, but say your first and your last name.
Jeff Duncan, but I will spell it because it's tricky. Geoff.
And what is your reaction to what happened here at the Fulton County Elections Hub when the FBI raided this building?
I think it's to just be honest and call it what it is. This is not about election integrity. This is not about validating the 2020 election. This is about simply trying to create a permission structure to sow synthetic seeds of doubt into the midterms in 26 that are coming in November and in the 28 elections. That's what this is about. That's the game Donald Trump plays. That's the game that his entire inner circle plays, is just sowing seeds of doubt. This has never been about facts. Donald Trump has never cared about facts in the 2020 election. He's never cared about due process or democracy. He's just cared about his own vanity of losing an election in 2020, acting like it was rigged, and it wasn't.
Do you think there is more to find out about the election, an election that happened 6 years ago?
I think we need to stay focused on trying to figure out how to have the safest, most legal elections again in 2026. We need to make sure Democrats and Republicans' votes are counted. We need to make sure that the election workers aren't harassed. We need to make sure systems are in place and backups and hand counts and audits and all of that stuff that the law provides. We don't need to have people sticking their nose in here just because they lost. And trying to create doubt in people's minds. That's what this is about. Look, we've had almost 6 years to run this out. Not a single ounce of proof has been generated. I think the most concrete thing I've seen about this election in 2020 of being rigged was a Facebook post or a Twitter post. These are not real people making real arguments.
And you were an elected official when the 2020 presidential election took place. You were in office when Trump called. What are you feeling, or what's your reaction to see that this is still playing out today? You know, you are in a new place in your life, you're running for office, and we're still seeing the ramifications from the election today.
Yeah, I think it's why I'm standing here as a Democratic candidate for governor. It's a huge reason why. I ran out of reasons why I should even remotely think about being a Republican. I was disgusted after the 2020 elections at not just the election, but then just the willingness to double down and lie and cheat and try to steal an election. And so I stand here today walking around the state every minute of every day trying to earn the trust and respect of enough Georgians to be the next governor. And I'll tell you, the rooms are growing. It's not just Democrats showing up in these rooms in the evenings. It's independents that are willing to pick sides. It's even disgusted Republicans that have had enough that are showing up. And I think the best message we can send to Donald Trump and to the MAGA groups that are trying to create fear and domination around the country is to win this election, to put a Democrat in the governor's mansion for the first time in nearly 30 years in Georgia, and send a message to the rest of the country that there is a better way to do this. They should expect more out of their leaders. We should have authentic, genuine leadership in important positions.
And we heard from the Republican chairman of Georgia, Josh McCoons, and he said that this was long overdue. Do you think it's long overdue?
What's long overdue is for us to actually have a legitimate conversation about how we move forward, how we actually take this country. And what I'll say is important is Josh McCoon or is Donald Trump talking about the affordability crisis that every Georgian's facing right now? Is Josh McCoon or Donald Trump talking about the healthcare crisis that so many millions of Georgians are waking up to right now, today? No. Are they talking about the egregious acts of the ICE agents in Minnesota? Donald Trump should be on an airplane right now flying to Minnesota instead of going to Mar-a-Lago, apologizing to those families, giving those kids a hug, saying that they will fire everybody involved in that process that made those horrific decisions, and restructuring ICE to not do what they're currently doing, to actually enforce the laws and not to be about fear and domination.
And what would you say to a voter who is now questioning election integrity here in Fulton County as we look to the 2026 election?
I think Georgia has proven for years that we have the safest, most legal elections. They've been audited, hand counted, you name it. These elections have been under scrutiny. And we continue to put forward a great election process that plays out. County by county, city by city, state, all across the state. But look, we cannot let people come in and sow seeds of doubt to create this chaos. And that's really what happened in 2020. That's why I spoke up as loudly as I did, because I knew that if the cat got out of the bag, that Donald Trump's lies were actually somewhat true, that it would create this herd mentality. And unfortunately, that's what's happened. But every day Donald Trump opens his mouth, every day events like this happen, my tent in my campaign gets bigger. The Democratic Party gets bigger, because I think folks wake up and realize we need genuine, authentic leaders that aren't willing to lie to get to office.
And if this continues when you are in office, give us an outlook on what your relationship will be between the White House and Georgia. Are you willing to take on President Trump if he continues doing, what we saw yesterday?
There's no doubt I'm willing to take on Donald Trump when he's wrong. I've done it when I was even in the Republican Party. I stood up to him, and I've not backed down. I won't. If he wants to use state assets, state resources to carry out these ICE raids, I won't allow it. I'll use the courts to the full extent of the law to push back on National Guard troops in the streets if we don't need them. I'll push back on using state resources. We have to. If we don't, he's just going to continue to be a bully or an authoritarian or a dictator. You fill in the blank.
Anything else you want to add on what transpired yesterday, the FBI raid, possibly if that was federal government overreach, anything else you may want to add?
Well, I think as the facts are starting to surface, there were so many moving parts inside the FBI with the personnel, right? Certain folks don't do what Donald Trump wants to do, they move them on. The fact that the judge who signed the warrant was from a different state. I mean, there's just so many different narratives that continue to fact patterns that play out. Donald Trump is running a Ponzi scheme, and it's of total misinformation. He's last week talking about Greenland. The week before he's invades Venezuela. He's weaponizing every angle of the federal government, but yet not tackling the affordability crisis, not tackling the healthcare crisis.
That's all I have for you.
Thank you.
That is Jeff Duncan, former lieutenant governor, Republican at the time, the 2020 election here in Georgia. Now a Democrat, switched parties as he is running for governor. You heard his take on yesterday's FBI raid there at the Fulton County election headquarters. I want to share with you what some Republicans are saying in response, including Burt Jones, who is running against Mr. Duncan for the governor's seat. Mr. Jones, currently the lieutenant governor, who followed Jeff Duncan, says Fulton County elections couldn't run a bake sale. Says, unfortunately, our Secretary of State hasn't fixed the corruption and our AG hasn't prosecuted it. He said yesterday was an important step toward accountability. A couple other gentlemen running for office on the Republican side. This is current Representative Mike Collins running for a Senate seat, saying go get him, Cash, in reference to FBI Director Kash Patel. And Buddy Carter, representative from Georgia, also running for U.S. Senate, saying Georgians are about to get some long overdue answers and learn just how right President Trump was in 2020. So some Republican rebuttals there to what we saw at the FBI office, as we just brought you live comments from Jeff Duncan, former Republican turned Democrat, speaking to our Ariana Manise, and she had some great questions for him there outside of the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center. What comes next? Still a lot of unknowns in this particular case, now that 3 truckloads full of hundreds of ballot boxes have been seized, and you're looking at video of that operation going well into the night last night. We found out about it around noon yesterday that the search warrant was being executed, and you could see by the daylight video there and then the nighttime video, this was an operation that lasted for quite some time. So those boxes now on their way to the FBI's headquarters in Northern Virginia, and we're going to have to wait to see what happens next with that investigation. And we're going to come back after a quick commercial break. We thank you for watching 11Alive Plus, where we bring you breaking news and live items like we just did with that interview, unedited and uninterrupted, live as it happened, from Jeff Duncan. See you in a few. get the latest out of Minneapolis this morning. 2 border agents who fired their guns in the shooting that killed Alex Preddy now on administrative leave, but questions remain surrounding that entire shooting. More Republicans now calling for an independent probe, and outrage over this shooting could lead to a partial government shutdown. Let's get more now from NBC's Alice Barr.
This morning, the 2 Border Patrol agents who fired their guns in Alex Preddy's fatal shooting in Minneapolis are on administrative leave, according to the Department of Homeland Security, with President Trump's border czar Tom Homan looking to ease tensions in a city on edge.
What we've been working on is making this operation safer, more efficient, by the book.
The Minnesota governor still pressing for federal agents to leave the state, saying he's seen no sign of that.
I have no evidence they have.
All as new video emerged of Preddy in an altercation with federal immigration officers 11 days before he was killed. The footage from online media outlet The News Movement shows Preddy yelling at agents and kicking their SUV, breaking a taillight before agents tackle him. The video does not show what led up to the confrontation. Preddy's family saying they knew about the incident after it happened, adding he posed no threat to anyone and that nothing could possibly have justified his killing. In a separate sign of boiling tensions, Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar speaking out after a man rushed and sprayed her at a town hall with what her office now says investigators believe was apple cider vinegar. She blamed rhetoric from President Trump.
The fear and intimidation doesn't work on me.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle condemned the frightening incident.
Political violence or those sort of confrontations should be condemned across the board.
As they work to prevent a partial government shutdown by the end of the day tomorrow, with Democrats dug in against Homeland Security funding without changes to immigration enforcement operations. Democrats' demands include ending roving ICE patrols across the country, body cams on all immigration enforcement agents, and no masks, and an updated code of conduct. They want Republicans to separate Homeland Security from other government funding to negotiate reforms, and that idea does appear to be gaining some traction in a potential shutdown off-ramp. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
You know, back here at home, we are starting to see more school walkouts when it comes to protesting ICE raids and ICE enforcement. Several Metro Atlanta families now concerned about how school districts are responding to some of these walkouts. And by the way, some of those walkouts scheduled for today. Let's get more now from Galat Malamed.
As students at high schools across Georgia and the country walk out protesting ICE's actions, Cobb County parent Dale Carnegie is taking issue with the letter sent home to families, warning about the consequences students could face if they walk out too. It's this line after the district lays out consequences, quote, each has long-lasting impacts that could be taken into account by college admissions offices and future employers, that Carnegie is most upset with.
I didn't like the tone in the letter, how it basically said, if you do this, it's going to ruin your future. I mean, that was the part that I didn't like. I do understand that the school is responsible to maintain a safe environment, but I think the scare tactics were a little overdone.
The letter says the district respects students' rights to express their views in a non-disruptive way and that leaving class violates the code of conduct. Carnegie says he would support his son Jordy if he wants to walk out during a protest planned at Wheeler High School Friday.
It's a real-life thing that's going on and happening right now. Like, I have family members that's currently going through it.
For Lassiter High School parent Julie Booth, this part of the letter, quote, we are aware of efforts by external groups to recruit students for a rally regarding ICE, stands out to her.
I feel like using words like recruit makes it seem like some nefarious source is coming in and trying to gather up our children, and that's not what has happened at all.
In a statement to 11Alive News, a Cobb school spokesperson says in part, our schools are narrowly focused on providing safe classrooms where children learn, no more and no less. We respect the rights of students to express their views in a non-disruptive manner. In Cobb County, Galat Malamed, 11Alive News.
More on that coming up today at midday. Working on some other big stories for you coming up in the next few minutes. Just keep it right here on 11Alive Plus, and you can catch all these headlines and more coming your way, including the weather impact alert. Some really cold temperatures. We may not get above freezing for long at all this weekend. Don't miss Chesley's latest forecast and what it means for snow potential for us this weekend. Yep, looking like it's going to happen. Certainly off to the east, but what about us here in the metro area? I am hanging on to his every word. I know you probably are too. Also, more on that FBI election raid in Fulton County yesterday. We brought you Jeff Duncan's comments live about 15 minutes ago as he was talking to our reporter Ariana Manise live in the parking lot. She just happened to be right place at the right time to capture him, and we took his comments live. We're going to give you more reaction, including from Republican officials coming up. Plus, a new report shedding some light on new warnings when it comes to tobacco use in the U.S. We'll have that story and a feisty email exchange between the CEO of DeKalb County and the sheriff of the county when it comes to that jailbreak in DeKalb County, which, by the way, we still haven't received a lot of information on. How did that great escape happen? What's being done to prevent it from happening again? We'll have more on that email exchange. It's all coming your way right here on 11Alive Plus. Great to be with you as we leave you with this live look from Athens, which could look a lot different in just 48 hours, potentially under a blanket of snow. We'll see you a little later.